everybody, Marcus here. Now I want to remind everybody of our pact that for every 1,000 subscribers I receive on this channel, I will give away one copy of Cyberlink's PowerDirector 13 Ultra software. So please consider liking this video, sharing it, subscribing, or even just listening to the very end. In my video attempting to give an account of MGTOW based on the semantics of the sentence, men going their own way, I showed that we end up at a dead end. The argument led us to the conclusion that the sentence, men going their own way, is an analytic a priori sentence that could simply be reduced to the subject concept of men and not lose any meaning. Now, in this video, I want to offer a virtue ethics account of MGTOW, starting from the point I left off in that video. Virtue ethics emphasizes the role of one's character and the virtues that one's character embodies for determining or evaluating ethical behavior. So, let's explore this account and see where it leads us. First, we need to dispel a conflation between two ideas that I see occurring often in the MGTOW community. Let's go back and look at the term their own way and put in place the distinction of the universal their own way and the particular their own way or his own way or my own way. Now, as we asserted the existence of free will, we are bound to the beliefs that naturally follow from that assertion, namely that every decision a man takes was made of his own volition, and as such, the content of their choice is in fact his own way. However, this is far too general of an idea, because it would mean that there are absolutely no decisions that a man can make that would put him outside the label of MGTOW. So, there clearly must be constraining qualities on the content of decisions that a man can make in order for MGTOW to have any meaning, other than the term men. These constraining qualities must then be the universal qualities of MGTOW and would be the object of discussion when talking about their own way, as it pertains to all MGTOW. Now, this differs from the particular of his own way or my own way. The particular becomes the life choices of an individual MGTOW as constrained by the universal qualities of MGTOW. So when a man says he is MGTOW, what he is succinctly stating is that his particular way does not contradict with any universal MGTOW constraining qualities. If his particular way does contradict with any universal their own way, then he is not MGTOW. So the sentence, "You can't tell me what my way is because it's my own way," is contingently true. It is only true for those decisions that do not contradict the universal. So, if there is no universal rule in MGTOW that constrains playing video games, then a man choosing to play them can be MGTOW, and one choosing not to play them can also be MGTOW. Video games in this example are a particular, which is not governed by a corresponding universal rule in MGTOW. Now that we have this distinction in place, we can safely say there is no account of MGTOW that can be given for the particular, only of the universal. So far, we have not put forward any universal constraining qualities, but all we have done is identified the necessity of their existence in order for MGTOW to be a meaning-bearing label, separate from simply the term men. So, let us start the search for some universal MGTOW qualities with a new question. What is the function of MGTOW? Aristotle asserted that you can only come to know what a thing is when you have identified its function. In Chapter 1 of Book 1 of the Nicomachean Ethics, he begins with the following. Every skill and every inquiry, and similarly every action and rational choice, is thought to aim at some good. And so the good has been aptly described as that at which everything aims. But it is clear that there is some difference between ends. Some ends are activities, while others are products which are additional to the activities. In the cases where there are ends additional to the actions, the products are by their nature better than the activities. Since there are many actions, skills, and sciences, it happens that there are many ends as well. The end of medicine is health, that of shipbuilding, a ship, that of military science, victory, and that of domestic economy, wealth. But when any of these actions, skills, or sciences come under some single faculty, as brittle making and other sciences concerned with equine equipment come under the science of horsemanship, and horsemanship itself and every action in warfare come under military science, and others similarly come under others, then in all these cases the end of the master science is more worthy of choice than the ends of the subordinate sciences. since these latter ends are pursued also for the sake of the former. And it makes no difference whether the ends of the actions are the activities themselves or something else additional to them, as the sciences just mentioned. So what Aristotle is saying is that everything has an ends to it, some sort of outcome we wish to achieve. He makes the distinction between two types of ends, those of activity and those of tangible material things. So, for example, getting a job has the material end of money. We do not get jobs for the sake of the activity of working, but for the sake of the money it produces. However, when we read a book, we have not produced anything once the book is read. What we have done is benefited from the content of the book through the activity of reading. Aristotle also points out that many things we do, we only do as an intermediary step to another ends. So that book we just read, though having produced nothing through reading it, may be a stepping stone to possessing the knowledge to assemble a computer, or something like that. But are there ends that are not intermediary to anything else? Aristotle thinks there is one end that is complete in itself, an end we do for its own sake and not for the sake of any others. That end is happiness. At the end of the day, everything we do is an intermediary end for the ultimate goal of being happy. With all this said, we must then conclude that MGTOW is some intermediary end to the goal of being happy. What we have not yet figured out is if MGTOW produces a tangible material product or is itself activity as an end. At first look, it may come across as obvious that MGTOW's end is not a material physical good, but let's not be too hasty in jumping to that conclusion. Now, after all, much of the discourse as to warning men against marriage has an enormous financial dimension. We cannot so easily dismiss the possibility that MGTOW's end is wealth generation, and therefore the physical good of money. Taking the sexual marketplace idea to its natural conclusion while incorporating MGTOW concepts, it's quite reasonable to imagine a news report that would end as follows. Following the recent declaration of war coming from the White House, economists predict that gold and silver prices will rapidly begin to rise. The male disposability and hypergamy indexes are also predicted to go up by 20%, which has caused the S&P rating of marriage to drop from AAA to AA+. The CEO of the Federal Reserve has put out a statement advising married men to prepare for their wives leaving them, while single men are being advised to hold off on marriage until the market resumes its upward growth. On a more positive note, alimony and child support securities are predicted to rise, and those with fluid income should consider investing in law firms specializing in divorce cases. Taken to its extreme, MGTOW's financial dimension can be analogized to investment banking, where one trades in life choices weighed on a risk model that reduces down to money. The language of marriage as a bad investment or raw deal, as well as the marriage contract deemed as criminal due to it amounting to fraud. These are all economic terms or euphemisms. However, an important question to ask is whether or not MGTOW has at its end money. It is to ask if MGTOW itself generates money. To this question, I would have to say that no, it does not. No one will pay you to be MGTOW. If money is not the product of MGTOW, then perhaps the videos are. This too can be quickly dismissed, as there are more MGTOW than MGTOW video makers. Though the videos themselves can be monetized, it is not MGTOW itself that is being monetized, but coaching or entertainment videos with MGTOW themes that are in fact monetized. So it would seem that on Aristotle's distinction between activity and product, we have eliminated product as the ends to which MGTOW strives. This then leaves us with activity. What activity then is the ends to which MGTOW strives? It cannot be said that not being married is an activity, as it is simply a negation of a legal status. Surely we cannot say that all humans are born MGTOW until the day their marriage status changes. Are men that no woman will marry MGTOW even if they stride with all their energy to find a wife? Surely not. I posit, and then will hold out to philosophical scrutiny, that the activity, which is the ends of MGTOW, is virtus. Virtus is a specific virtue in ancient Rome. Its Latin root word vir means man. Virtus has the connotation of valor, manliness, excellence, courage, character, and worth. It was the trait that made one a man. And as Aristotle states, virtue is an activity, for it cannot be said that someone who never performs a courageous act still possesses the virtue of courage. Virtus was something attributed to the acts a man would perform as part of the public sphere and not granted to someone for acts within his private life. It is the quality which compelled someone to achieve greatness. It required courage, skill, and commitment. It was earned through activity and not through sedentary existence. With this ends in mind, we can see many MGTOW messages coming to a coherent unity. Only men can possess virtus. Only men can be MGTOW. Men that strive for virtus can no longer afford the risks of marriage, as it greatly diminishes their ability to achieve great things, considering the risks of modern marriage. Having a family or providing for children, these things are not part of virtus. They're private matters, and as such neither contribute nor take away from virtus, though these days can greatly diminish your ability to pursue it. For a man to publicly announce that he has opted out of marriage, relationships, and all those other ridiculous burdens that typically are thrust upon his shoulders to be allowed the privilege to think himself a man, is courage in its own right. He will be faced with ridicule from every direction. The irony is that all of these qualities, getting married, having children, buying a house, providing for your family, these were all completely irrelevant to being a man in Roman times. Those times when men were still men, as women would say? No, being a man was to leave your mark on the world, whether through military service, political life, acts of magnificence for the public good, and so forth. Modern day examples would be something like using your private funds to build a hospital, or finding a cure for a disease, or inventing some new technology that benefits millions, or even solving a difficult math problem. Serving in the army these days is no longer a valid outlet for pursuing virtus. The causes for which war is waged have become petty and hollow. Also, with technology having overtaken much of what used to come from human skill, war is no longer a place where a man can really leave their mark. There's no heroism in dying from a sniper's bullet, and there's no heroism in pressing the launch button on a missile. So like Barbarossa said in one of his videos, and I'm paraphrasing here, just imagine what could be achieved if all those men who currently slave to provide for a family invested that energy into tinkering with inventions in their garages. This is virtus. This is striving to leave a mark on the world, to create something new, something great, not because you are honor-bound to serve the public good, but that you as a man are compelled to exert yourself upon the world. This resurrection of virtus in a man is what I see as the ends for which MGTOW strives, as the function of MGTOW, and as the good whose activity it hopes to achieve. Now, I can imagine a challenge can be lodged against this argument of virtus that states that all I have done here is reduce men once again from human beings to human doings. I would posit, however, that because men's worth has always come from their deeds and not from their own existence, is exactly what has made men great and achieved greatness. We in the MGTOW community argue for meritocracy, but then denigrate that we are only seen through the lens of our deeds. Our deeds are our identity, and like Nietzsche said in The Genealogy of Morals, there is no doer behind the deed. There is only the deed. In fact, a large part of MGTOW discourse is to break the cycle of men seeing value in a woman because she is a woman. We are trying to get men to look at women through the lens of their behavior. We are trying to elevate women from mere human beings to human doings. A meritocracy cannot exist where some retain worth through a happenstance of their birth. Existing alone is a necessary but not sufficient gauge of worth. Outside of a baseline of a general human dignity that should be allotted to all rational beings, no further worth can be attributed to someone simply because they exist. Two idiots are not worth more than one wise man. Women and men fail to allot men even this baseline dignity. Men allow far more to women than this baseline of dignity. Expectations need to be reset. But we should not lose sight that it is action that counts at the end of the day. You become who you are. You are not born who you become. So if we tie all this back to the beginning, we made the distinction of a universal quality to MGTOW that all MGTOW share, and the particular which is unique to each MGTOW but still must conform and not contradict the universal. We explored Aristotle's notion that to know a thing is to know its function, and that all things have an ends that is either action or product. After eliminating product as the ends of MGTOW, we were left with action. I had posited virtus as the ends, the Roman virtue of manliness. As according to Aristotle, all virtues are actions, we satisfied Aristotle's need for an end. If indeed virtus is the ends of MGTOW, then it nicely accounts for the dominant sense that only men can be MGTOW, and it also nicely accounts for why MGTOW should not be married, though logically it is still possible for a man to be married and strive for virtus, but so unlikely to achieve it if married makes marriage imprudent, and therefore in contradiction to virtus itself, leaving marriage out as an option. Thanks for listening. Go team.